welcome to What's New with Mike, Jeff, and multi-gold winning Mark. How is everybody doing this morning? Jeff, forgot to tell you, I always make up different intros.
Those are better found out by surprise. And I don't want to prep him for it. So I was actually surprised it wasn't longer. Normally, you like to hold
I don't know Mark well enough yet to really pull from. Like, I know the medals, and I know the work.
I call BS. That has never stopped. Knowing someone has never stopped.
I was going to say, you haven't picked up on all the sarcasm and everything like that from the chats that I've been typing in as fast as I can.
I was going to go the gift master of harassing Jeff, but you know.
He's a little out. He's a little on the uptake, Mark. It just takes a little while to catch on.
Yeah, I take a little while. Good morning, Heron. How are you, buddy? How is everybody doing this lovely Saturday morning?
I'm good. How about you, Mark?
Oh, sure. Throw me in the fire. It's your show. I'm good. I got my cup of coffee. You got 1.5 Pop-Tarts eaten. I'm okay. So, you know.
I can do that. I can do that math on my fingers. Sorry.
Yeah.
Good morning, David.
Good morning, David. So do you use StreamYard for? So what do you do? What are your social things?
Okay, so a couple of things that about All right, so mostly I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Those are pretty much the two platforms that I publish my models, other than your guys' Discord. Okay. So I'll there's another group. There's 2 other podcasts that I'm friends with, and I don't want to impact your show, but I've got and I post on their Facebook page, and one's got a Discord channel as well, and stuff like that I'll put pictures up there on their stuff as well. They're a great bunch of guys all around and stuff, and so then but really when I'm posting, it's on Glue Sprue and Barbecue at Facebook. Okay. And it's also my Glue Sprue and Barbecue, which is on Instagram. Those are the 2 main platforms that I'll do stuff on.
It's not enough that he's a fantastic scale model builder. He also has to make some really great barbecue and win awards for those as well. So
that's my why. So let's set the record straight. It's the barbecue is something that my wife and I got into for our backyard and stuff like that, and then we did. We kept watching all the different TV shows, Pit Masters and stuff. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. Well, there was a barbecue shop supply store up in Loveland, about 10 minutes away, or 10 miles away, excuse me. They put on a practice cook and stuff like this. So we went up and did it and had such a great time with it. Met some great folks that 6 weeks later, they did a competition. Sure, we went and did it. It was all ribs and stuff. And we've just been doing stuff in our backyard for a long time, and next thing you know, they called us. They called Jamie's name because she signed up for it and put her name, and basically they called her name, and we won a smoker, which same model that we bought 3 months before. So we're like, great. So we took one out to Michigan for our family out there, so we don't have to haul it, and we go back and forth, and and so it's mostly the barbecue piece. That's mostly her because she does all the rubs and stuff, and I'm just I play with fire. Yes, I'm not going to lie.
The point I'm trying to make, because if we were to move your camera slightly to your left, your wife's workstation in the hobby room is on the other side, correct?
That is correct.
So you guys do things together?
Yes, we do.
Which is amazing. And that's the point I'm trying to make. It's something you guys do together, and that's amazing because that just makes the hobby, even both sides of that hobby, your barbecue side and your modeling side, that just makes it just that much better.
We've been together. We got together in 2013, and they had IPMS Nationals was up in Loveland, which is again 10 miles away. That year in 2013, and so we went up to the national shows, and she, I had all these models and stuff. I was a bachelor for, and so all of my models and stuff were moving boxes because I bought the house in 2008 and pretty much just had it there. I had a table set up, I did my modeling, but I left everything in the moving boxes. I never did what you see now. And we got together, and and she, when she moved in and stuff, she took all this out and said, "You got to show it off. This is awesome." Okay. Then we went to the Nats, and some friends of mine, a mentor of mine, took her under his wing and showed her everything, and she got really interested in it and liked World War II German armor and stuff, and liked the figures, liked orcs. She really likes. She's got one of them. Oh, seriously, dude, she's got a massive orc collection. And because of the comedy, the humor and the goofiness and stuff like that. So, and I said, I've got a friend of mine who's he says he's a space wolf, but really he's a fuck. So, I'm gonna meet him someday. Yes.
I might be a little offended.
And I agree with you 100%, because if you ever play with Jeff, he acts like an orc because he can't hit.
I did.
Well, I like to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks a lot. That's the end of the show today. Well,
in 2002, I drove out there, and we ended up playing on Saturday, the day after that Games Day wrapped up. He gave me a tour of the site, and we ended up ordering pizza and playing in one of the conference rooms there.
Yeah,
because he had all of his Space Wolves, and I brought my Dark Angel Terminators, all the metal minis. Like, yeah, okay, And he introduced me to plasma, and wiped out my army. And like, by turn 3, I was dead. Okay. And to this day, I've never forgotten it. And I always, we went back to playing Tribes, and I made him eat plasma. Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. For you guys that don't know, Mark and I have known each other forever. We met online playing a video game called Tribes, and there was a Games Day was going on, and Mark was trying to figure out how they can make it out. And I said, just stay with me, which back then was just, people were just shocked.
2002. Everybody's like, what?
You never met this guy? You're inviting him to his house with your family? Yeah, he's cool. We play online together. We play Tribes. He's cool. He could have been a mass murderer. I could have been a mass murderer. Who knew? So, but we've been friends ever since. I think this is we've only met face to face, I think, once.
That was it. Yep.
That was it. And the rest of the time has been online. So it's been a friendship forever. And he's like massively sarcastic. And if I want to get a true sense and be knocked down a peg or two, I just get a hold of Mark and I go, "Hi, Mark," and then the sarcasm starts flying. Like, thinks he's a space wolf player, but he's really an orc guy. That kind of stuff. So.
Well, I do adore your wife already, because she's an orc fan, which the orcs.
I ramble. I'm sorry.
No, dude, ramble away. That's what our show is all about. Like, it's 3 old guys rambling.
Well, I may be a space wolf player who thinks he's an orc, but I think her love of orcs is reflected in her husband.
I can't deny that at all.
I'm just gonna let everybody know right now.
There's no way I can deny that.
Any serious conversation to take place during this show. This is going to be a show of nothing but sarcasm and cuts, and just kick back and enjoy the entertainment.
The proper response to that comment, Mark, was, "That's mean. It's accurate, but mean."
You're not wrong.
There you go. Yeah. I think that applies to both of them, actually, and as far as your partner, I've made a workspace for my cat right over here. He never uses it. I never see him. I put models out for him. Nothing. He just doesn't do anything with it. So it's just me.
No, so, like she saw. I mean, with the 3D printers, the whole reason. So we're coming out of COVID, and I saw a thing for like the New Year's Eve, like 2021 or whatever, Any Cubic had a special, one of the New Year's holiday, whatever, sales. And I mentioned it, and she's like, "Oh, get it. Great." And then I started looking at different files, and I saw all these different orcs and stuff. She's like, "Make sure you get a good one." Okay. So I printed out different things. Oh yeah, it's ooh. I mean, there's a bunch that I got for, like, there's an orc with Santa Claus and a grot with a sleigh, and some squig reindeers and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, so I've got to print that off. So she's got it for Christmas this year.
Well, the statement of when you're looking at STLs, and the statement is get a good one. The hard part is there are so many good ones out there. Yeah. It's finding just one.
And that
Yes.
that is my fear of 3D printing, is that I would just be printing mountains of stuff, and I would probably not be painting any of it because I would just be printing mountains of stuff.
I'm not gonna lie. That's
one of the things I want.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to do with the 3D printer is I want to start scaling up military weapons and start creating scale model cars for Gaslands, and just doing really cool post-apocalyptic model builds just for fun.
right.
But it will just take me down a rabbit hole that will never end. So I see the look on your face. I think I've touched on something.
You're not wrong. No, let's see. I've got. Should I show the picture or the? No, I probably shouldn't do that figure. So the one I showed you, yeah, no, I probably shouldn't do that. No, there was. I mean, well, actually, I've got one here. Hold on. Oh. So, like, I did BattleTech figures.
Okay.
This is it's still in the frames. I've used it for a demo. You know, stuff like this when people want to see. You know, oh, what the 3D printing, what's the figure look like? This is an Atlas. Okay.
Put up its camera again. Oh, there we go. BattleTech stuff.
Yeah.
Bit of a glare. Yeah. No, we see the scale's pretty cool.
Okay. So, I mean, it's the normal within the range of the alpha miniatures and stuff like that. There's a couple of folks. This is actually where kind of what started it with the 3D printing. It was like the first model. One of the first models I ever did was BattleTech, and I'm like, ooh, I can get an Atlas that's 16 inches tall.
Yes, takes you down.
So yeah, that was, and actually when I was at the show this a couple weeks ago. There was a couple of folks that did. One guy did a really nice bushwhacker that he basically took the file, 3D printed it, scaled it up, and had it there at the show, and it was just fantastic. It was like, I was like, dang, that's okay. Now I know what I'm doing next year since I get to drive to the one next year in South Bend, Indiana. Sure. So,
yeah.
So before the show, we were kind of just chatting in general. I was getting to know Mark, and it turns out Mark and I were both born in the same city in Michigan. So we got two Lions fans here against one Wolf. Well,
just remember, wolves run in packs.
And lions.
Yeah, wolves all. Yeah, never.
The male lion does nothing. I'm worried about the wives.
Have you met me?
I've met Andy. Hence my worry. She would just beat the crap out of me.
Yes. But we were just chatting a little bit, and you mentioned that you were introduced to the hobby of just in general because your parents owned a hobby store.
Yep. Back in the 70s, after my father got back from Vietnam in '69, he met my mother and they got married. My grandfather was a government engineer, and he was into trains and stuff like that. And my grandfather was supported of my father, and they opened up a hobby shop called All American Hobbies that was there in Mount Clemens. And it was there in Mount Clemens from, I want to say, around 71 when I was born, shortly thereafter, all the way through, I want to say 76, 77, something like that. They changed locations. They moved out of Mount Clemens down towards 14 Mile and Gratiot, towards the metro area there, because there was a mall right there, and they had that. And those were I spent the first 5 years of my life in a hobby shop on the counter. I mean, I was building early monogram kits. There's video of, you were talking about control line RC control line airplanes and stuff. There's video of my father and his buddies have me flying at 4 years old on the picnic table, doing a control line airplane that testers used to make, right? And with a Cox engine and stuff like this, it was all foam with an engine, go figure. And I'm standing there on the 8mm video spinning around doing this control line plane at 4 years old. And I'm like, great. Okay. I did that. I remember doing snap type models with my grandfather, and he did the trains and stuff like that. So I started doing it, and they had the hobby shop till I want to say around 77. My folks they went through a divorce, and sold the hobby shop, closed it, and then I basically have been doing it since. I did the scale models since those times, and I've never stopped. My mother, about a year later, my mother remarried to my adopted father, and he encouraged it, even though he wasn't a modeler. He was, played football for Michigan, and he was all-state wrestler, big sports jock guy, great guy. He was an electrician there for a while, an electrical contractor years later, but he was like, I don't understand the models, whatever, but I'm going to encourage you. Like, okay. So even when we moved, we did that. So.
When did you get into the gaming side of modeling?
Well, I met him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, in all seriousness. So okay. I was, we had started playing tribes and stuff like this. And I was playing video games and stuff. I did D&D in high school, and I painted some of the Ral Partha minis. I still have them. I've got some of the sets from, Larry Elmore's Ral Partha, like with a little set that they had for the ladies and stuff like that. And Sword and Sorcerer series, Elminster, and those characters and stuff that we had. I painted those up, but I didn't really get into Games Workshop or miniature painting at all until Jeff. Because that's one. I did some paintings for the Warhammer figures. When the plastic minis came out, the new plastic Space Marines came out. I was asked to paint by the local hobby town. Some friends of mine said, "Hey, would you paint these up for the display case?" Sure, do whatever you want. Okay, I got the box set. I painted them up. I did Dark Angels because they're green, because I didn't like the Smurfs. I'm like, nah, I don't like them. So, and I didn't know anything about them. I went and did that. And then they said keep them, because they took the display case out 2 weeks later after I had them all done. They're like, here you go, models back. Okay. And that was it. And then I started doing Jeff, and quickly became his remote tech support.
Yeah.
So he, the way I recall, he had 3 daughters, his wife, and one gaming system. And when we were playing, it'd be like, my computer's broke doing this. And he's like, we're doing, chat sessions and this and that, or calling me on the phone. And like, I need help.
You eventually built and sent me a machine. So
you're actually one of 2 people I've actually done that for.
Yeah.
So consider yourself lucky.
I do. Absolutely do.
So your actual day job is computer tech work?
Yes, I've been in IT since '96. I'm in cybersecurity these days, but I've been in IT. I started out doing desktop servers, all kinds. I've been in all fields. I've been a manager, all that stuff before.
Well, and cybersecurity is the big thing anymore, because there are so many people hacking and scamming and doing all kinds of crazy shit. So,
yeah. But if you talk to Jamie, she's like, because I work from home. You talk to my wife, and somebody goes, "So what do you do for a living?" She's like, "He tells people no for a living."
Yes, you cannot bring that program into the system. Yeah. Sorry.
Nope, you can't do it this way. You can do it that way, but you're not in hell. Ain't no chance in hell you're doing it this way.
Yeah.
And usually about the 6th or 7th time of, saying no to the same person, then I start throwing in different words, usually with my favorite one that starts with an F. No. What part of no do you not understand?
Very cool. Very cool. So your passion's always been there then. So you've always have been at some point having scale models in your life. I'm just kind of like in my mind going, how many models did he possibly build in his life? And I'm sure it's a large number.
Thousands, to be honest.
Yeah.
As a kid, it was when I was a kid, there weren't, after our hobby shop closed, that's probably about, we'd hit like Kmart or stuff like that, and I'd get whatever they'd have in the toy aisle, something like that. I'd grab it. Didn't matter if it was a plane or a car or whatever. It was like, ooh, that's cool. Okay. That's partly why I'm all over the place from a subject. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're an aircraft guy, aren't you?" I do all of it. I'm this. My modeling tastes are squirrel. Okay.
I like that.
But when I was about 10 years old, my mother's side of the family was from Tennessee, so we moved down to there to be closer to my grandparents that had retired, and we were about an hour south of Nashville, and so we'd hit the little town. It was like once or twice a month. We'd hit a little mall, and they had a KB toy store there, and I'd grab testers kits. Everything, the deal was I got to get one, and usually it was done and painted and ready to go before the next 2-week trip. So it was like that all throughout my childhood. So,
was there a point in your experience where you all of a sudden, like, something triggered where you like started really getting more into it, or was it just a gradual progression of just trying different techniques and trying different things?
1987, and I'd walked into the local supermarket, which was an offshoot of Kroger's, and I saw a Fine Scale Modeler.
Oh,
and I never, Fine Scale Modeler was the magazine. It's still around today and stuff like that, but back then it was like, here I am, this kid in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, and I was like, it was like, the skies parted, the globe came down, the doves flew off, angels were singing, and I'm like, I still have the issue up in the
very
closet.
cool.
Yeah, seriously, they went digital. They had like 25 years on CD, but I still got about a dozen issues from that time, and most of those from the early ones that I had as a kid that I literally wore the covers and just thumbing through it. That's the first time I ever saw a Hasegawa kit or a Tamiya kit. And it was like, and all these different things. It was like, whoa, what's vacuum forming? Whoa, I'm never doing that. Okay. So I mean, it's like you saw, the white metal for this and all the conversions. Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, there were so many different guys that, Paul Budzik, who did aircraft, and, and all these different folks. Actually, I met, I'm old. I just had a brain fart. Bob Steinbrunn. There's a gentleman who did aircraft. Fantastic guy. He did articles for him in the 90s named Bob Steinbrunn. I met him at Omaha IPMS or at San Marcos, and then met him at the IPMS Nationals a few years ago, and was like, we were having breakfast or whatever. I mean, I thought he had his nameplate and stuff. I'm like, like this is Jamie's like, are you okay? And he was behind us. Him and his buddy were behind us.
Heron has a question he's curious if you've ever built any of the Aurora kits.
No, that's before my time.
Okay.
Most of the kits that I had, the Hawk and Aurora and those earlier kits and stuff, to be fair, most everything I built was either Monogram, Revell, MPC, for like the Star Wars kits when they first came out and all that, as well as cars, AMT. Those were the ones that throughout most of my childhood and everything I could get my hands on, those were the ones I built. Auroras, they were, I think they were out of business by the time I, really got into it in my middle school and teenage years and stuff like that, where I can remember it. Because when we moved to Tennessee, that's where I really put myself into it, because there was, there's nothing else to do. I was feeding cattle, and we lived on a cattle farm and stuff, and I'm doing that and getting beat up by thugs and whatever at school and farm boys and stuff, like, yeah, Yankee, okay. Mm-hmm. So, but
very cool. Well, if you ever make it out here, you can go visit all of those old kits over at Andy's Hobby headquarters. So.
I know. I'm looking forward to that. We've met Andy a couple times at the different. We saw him in Vegas and met him for the first time in Vegas, and then saw him at San Marcos a couple years ago. We were out at a barbecue dinner, and he walks in, and we're like, Andy, the whole room full of people, and he comes in, and he's like, just like Norm from Cheers, right? You're like this. He's like, hold on, let me go get my wife. Do that again, okay? He leaves, and he goes out, and comes back with his wife, and all of us. We're all at a banquet dinner, type thing, or big barbecue dinner. Andy, and like this, he's like, see, people like me. It was fun. So,
did you watch it? He recently was sent some kits from I think it was Tamiya that were like the photo shoot models for his museum, and he did a video on it. I don't know if you watched it.
I haven't seen it. It must be the most recent one.
It's just went up.
Tamiya sent me a bunch of stuff, but I haven't watched it yet. But.
Yeah, those were the actual photo shoot models that they use for promotions and stuff like that. And he was kind of showing, like, he was more. This is what I like about Andy. He was more invested in how they packaged them than the actual models themselves.
Yeah. I like Andy too because he's pretty fantastic. I mean, he really is. He's such a great guy.
He's nice people, good people.
For me, I've got to see his business model just grow over the years because he's right down the street. He was old. His one shop is right down the street from the game shop that I go to.
Yeah.
So
IoT.
We would head over there.
IoT, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll have because scale model products actually are very useful in miniature products. And we would head over there and look for styrene and weathering products and all that wonderful stuff. And his shop was just a really small shop. This was before he was doing videos. And then he started doing the videos. The little shop grew. And now he's got this bigger shop that's a warehouse and is on.
I'm looking forward to it. I really want to see the warehouse. I mean,
I'm sure David's got to go to work there today.
Yes, he does. And I might see him when I go to Andy's hobby headquarters today. So, but leading
Dave, when is the Dave, if you're paying attention, when is the container with my Leopard 2, 1/16 scale Leopard 2 coming in? Come on.
I don't know if David's privy to that type of information.
I mean, come on, just hit me up on Facebook. Let me know, okay?
Just give us that insider information. I love
my birthday present. Jamie got me for my birthday, and I'm like, she's like, it might not be here. I'm like, what'd you get?
From what I understand, it's on the boat.
It's on the boat. When's the boat getting here? That's what I want to know. When's it in my hand? It's not here yet. It's like the space wolf. Leave me alone, Jeff. You can't. I did all the memes. Good luck with that.
I put the only meme up that applies. I want it now.
And what's sad is it's all released today, and he still has to wait.
I'll get my hands on it.
Well, I may just go buy a box set
and
taunt you with it, like sending you photos, and I'll paint them like
that's a good idea.
And yellow and green and all kinds of.
You are free to both do that as long as you have pity upon me when you are done and send them to me.
So was it easy for you to transition from scale modeling into gaming model? Because scale models, you don't play with them, you don't touch them, you're displaying them.
It was so I started at right at the launch of beginning of third edition is when I started.
Okay.
And so that one always will always have a soft spot for me. And it was definitely new. I played Stratego game as a kid. I played Risk as a kid. Not that type of thing and those types of games there, but this was interesting to be able to, and I fell into the traps of many new players like, let me add this cool unit to my army. Let me add that cool unit to my army, even though it completely sucks game-wise. And you're like, okay, let me go off and play my first game. And I'm like, wow, I just got smoked in like turn 2. Great. Wow. because you get into that was the. I went from scale modeling to going to game stores, and that brought a whole new dynamic and funk to the list because nobody uses deodorant there, like most hobby shows or anywhere else. Okay, most teenagers, it's like, guys, here, you need one under each arm, a whole stick of deodorant under each arm. There you go, and put it in your backpack and all over the house. Okay, yeah, but it was challenging because I won the painting contest because that part I had. The gaming, I sucked.
I remember you and I having a long conversation once about fine scale modelers versus miniature painters. And one of the things we talked about was usually guys that do models that include like a figure miniature, the miniature sometimes detracts from the model because they're not real good miniature painters.
Right.
Yeah, we had a really long chat about that early on when we were talking about all this stuff back in the day. And by the way, what day was it, Mike?
Tuesday.
No, that was the thing, is because you get there's guys that will do like pilot figures in an airplane, or they'll do the one you see now is guys will do tanks, and then they'll have the tank commander standing out of there, and a lot of the scale model competitions and shows and stuff like that, IPMS or whatever. Typically, if you're judging like a tank, then the figure, when they tell us when we're judging, is like, well, that figure there, he's just for representation. You don't necessarily, you get to exclude the figure from the tank because it would, a lot of times it's like, oh, somebody's got sunny side up for eyes. Okay. So they'll take that into effect in competitions. Now, if it's in the vignette or diorama category, all bets are off, because at that point, if it's a vignette, the figures, the base, all that comes in diorama. You've got the figures, the base. You've got to have the difference in the diorama is more figures, bigger base. But the diorama category, it also has to have the requirement to tell you a story. What are they doing? Oh, it's just two guys reading a map. What kind of story is that? Okay. And that's the cliche. Two guys reading a map.
Right.
Everybody does it. It's like, oh, what an original idea. Great. The two figures I'm doing now, two guys walking down a road. Original. Yeah, I don't care. But, it's an exercise. So,
but it's something that happened quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Kind of a common scene in all your movies and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. It's one of those things, and you're like, okay. And then you get, so I see what Karen pointed. Yeah. For the most part, they have. Hasegawa is a good second, good one up there as well for the aircraft. But so the thing with the figures and doing that, for me, the armies, I still, like, this is my, come on. Deathwing Terminator, one of the new ones, the new sculpts, right?
Yeah.
I've got them just base colored. I literally just did a gloss coat over it and started doing the decals for the shoulder pad. And then I'll go back in, and I did a pin wash with them, but that's about it. So.
Mark, or Mike, aren't you going to let him know is using his paint handle wrong?
I was going to let that slide.
Oh, you're going to give him the guest one-time rule of just. Okay.
Maybe as time goes on, I'll loosen up.
When you get to know him better.
Actually, Mike's not wrong.
Don't encourage him. Don't encourage him.
I have the old style.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have the new style. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I'm doing certain scale models, I'll take a lot of times. I'll take like the turret, and I'll put like blue tack on there, and I'll do that. Now, what I've done here more recently, though, is I actually picked up a whole bunch of extra bases. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And what I do now is pretty much like for the German figures and stuff that I'm doing, they've all got basically they're on extra GW bases. I blue tack it and I use the painting number. So.
You guys keep talking. I'll be right back.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Uh-oh. He's getting the important phone call. So.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, my scale model hobby is, started out as a kid. My mom encouraged me to do a lot of artistic things because when I did lose my finger, I was naturally right-handed.
Right.
Well, in order for me to really develop skills left-handed, because that's basically what they made me do, my mom got me into art and model building and painting and all. She supported that all the way. And I've been in and out of the hobby. I've been probably back into the miniature hobby a couple decades now.
Right.
But I just enjoy it. It's just a lot of fun. And I just scale models are something that I do like, but my biggest challenge with scale models is I build them, I put them in the box, and I put the box away because I don't have display places for them.
No, I get that.
That was Darren calling me about my boxed army.
Oh, and what's the news on your Space Wolf army?
It's leaving Monday.
Ooh, so you got to wait a couple more. You're not going to have it till next week's show.
I'll be fine with it. I'll be all right.
So you just recently came back from a show, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's where you won gold?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
And that was for the tank, correct?
Yes, that was for the Booker. That was the show was Armor Modeling Preservation Society, or AMPS, AMPS.
Okay.
Just like the electrical,
Tank.
So, yep, that's the one.
All
So, AMPS is basically geared towards it's a larger nationwide model club. It's mostly, however, the majority of the folks are on the east of the Mississippi, if you will. There's a club that I started last year here that meets here at the house, and we serve everybody that comes barbecue or a food or whatever. So it's an incentive because my wife's cooking. You talked about, she'll cook or whatever, and everybody shows up just to placate me, and they really there to show up for a free meal.
I want to move to Colorado so I can come over and hang out.
You just want to move to Colorado to give me a hard time. So
that is a bonus. That's
a bonus feature for moving to Colorado.
But I pay the price because it's reciprocal.
Yes, I know. It is. Yeah, I give as good as I get.
Actually, I have to tell you this: when Mike and I first started hanging out, he and I were taking shots at each other so often that one day, Darren pulls me aside, and he goes, "Are you and Mike okay?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're fine." He goes, "Well, you guys are constantly just throwing barbs at each other. I thought you guys were mad." We're like, "No, that's just how we are."
It's kind of funny. I made, since COVID, I talked about these guys with the different podcasts and stuff that I've become friends with. It's funny is that, Jeff, I've known you for pretty close to 30 years at this point. And,
we're getting
I know nothing I say or do or whatever is going to cause you to whatever. We both get along. We treat each other. We'll be as gnarly and as hard as we can on it. I'm like, dude, really? Okay. There's no topic that's not, I'm going to give you a hard time regardless. It's funny is that when I first hang out with these folks and stuff like that, the new guys or whatever, became so self-conscious. I kept apologizing. My normal sarcasm would come out. I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to offend them. Sorry. Oh, I'm like, sorry. And last year, there were a couple of them were like, dude, they were, guy named Aaron and TJ were like, Aaron came over and says, yeah, I'm like, what's so funny? He's like, you? I'm like, really? Yeah, because we were over laughing about how you keep apologizing, like you're going to, offend us or whatever. And I'm like, oh, screw you. I'm like, really? Okay. Really? The gloves off? So this year we all were at an Airbnb, and I was like, okay. And there were a few times where it's like, I just let it fly. And I'm like, we'll see what happens.
Mike and I
next year, I'm okay.
Whenever Mike and I have a moment where one of us thinks the other's mad because of something that we said, if I would go to Mike and say, hey, buddy, I'm over the top, I'm really sorry. He'll go, all right, are you being a delicate flower right now?
Yes.
And then if it came back my way, I'd go, you big snowflake.
Okay. Here's your yes. You need your queen. Drama queen. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to have thick skin to survive in this world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But no. So we went to.
I don't have thick skin. I just cry at night.
That's just because of the way you played tribes in most video games and tanks and stuff like that. I'd cry too.
You take that back.
No. I've seen you play.
It was accurate, but still mean.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
Heron's reminiscing with us as we're all chatting away here, and he's talking about his first model kit was the NPC pirate ship.
Oh wow!
The Jolly Roger.
Yeah,
the old Pirates of the Caribbean, not from the movie. That's the one that would have been from the Disney ride. That probably would have been, I'd say, mid to late 70s, probably 77, 78.
Yeah. They still make it today, though. You can still buy it.
Yeah, Round 2, a company called Round 2 bought up AMT, bought up MPC, and they're repopping them, doing that stuff. Like you can get, and matter of fact, most of these, a company called Atlantic Hobbies.
Yep.
Atlantis. They got a lot of the old Monogram and Revell molds from like the 60s and 70s and early 80s and stuff. They're repopping them. So
the part I'm loving about that comment though is he got that kid as a reward for learning how to tie his shoelaces.
Yes.
That's amazing. What the heck?
You still haven't been able to achieve that, Jeff. I'm sorry.
That wasn't giving me a goal. I might be a different person if I had rewards like that for achieving life goals.
You need to stop wearing Velcro shoes first. Okay.
Shoes, really?
Well, you're right. Crocs. Okay.
Where I'm from, shoes.
Shoes don't count. Anyways, talking about your recent experience at the model show.
Yeah,
this looked gold in what did they classify this? Just as armor, or because it had a display base? Was it classified?
So AMPS is a little different. They use a kind of like an open judging system. So it's called gold, silver, bronze.
Okay.
They use a rubric or a scoring. They've got a point system that you have, and basically perfect score would be a 30.5.
Okay.
The 0.5 is for, hey, I've got research or a build book, like steps and stuff like this. You get a half a point. But what they do is they'll look at your model. The judges, typically a team of 4 judges, will look at it, and then they'll start, unlike other 1, 2, 3 shows where they're doing triage or whatever, like, oh, this one's got a flaw, it's out, like IPMS and stuff like that. That's fine. But yeah, these guys, they'll look at it, plus and minus and stuff, and then basically they'll deduct a half a point here or something like that for it, and then you get gold, silver, bronze, or honorable mention, or that type of thing. So this one actually got gold. There's different levels of it. They've got a basic, intermediate level, advanced level, and then master level.
Okay.
I entered in the advanced level. Last year was the first time I did it, and this was again this year as well. Because advanced is you're using photo etch, you're using, different conversion pieces, resin, stuff like that. That's more for advanced modeling. And, and a lot of folks will go, oh, I'll do intermediate first. It's the first time there, but they're taking like that advanced model and putting it in an intermediate category. And it's like, okay, I just started advanced and I'll take the, licks as they come.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I did this. This is a kit from a relatively new company called Magic Factory.
Oh.
It's the M10 Booker, which was the new Army's new, assault gun / light tank. They literally just canceled the program about 3 weeks before the show. They took and so the whole time at the show is like, oh, they canceled the program. Yep. Everybody was like, oh, they canceled that. Oh, they canceled that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Still great. Yep. Okay. But the Army had a low initial order of like 96 vehicles, and they took delivery of 88 of them. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So
sure,
they're figuring out what to do with them. And I'm like, okay, this is actually the kits, one of the what if color schemes that was on the decal or on the instructions and stuff. And so I took it and ran with it. It's a winter scheme. It's supposed to be in Hohenfels, Germany, at the training center there. So where they did Reforger, Jeff, you're an old M1 guy, where they did the Reforger, exercises back in West Germany, during the Cold War. That training center still exists today, and that's where they did that. So I carved the base from wood. I did wood veneer, I carved the base from foam. The blacktop, the road itself is a piece of cork, And then I used AK Interactive's asphalt and spread that over it, like I was making a cake.
Sure.
And then came over with some rough sandpaper and knocked down all the, the high spots and smoothed it out. I airbrushed the road markings. I made sure, did the measurements, figured out what German roads were, how many inches, how many feet were between the lanes.
Sure.
Calculated that for 1/35 scale, did that, sprayed it. Did all the groundwork, carved that out, did it old school with the sand, GW sand and AK sand and stuff and white glue. I used matte medium for the most part.
Okay.
And use that and drop you down. Then I did the static grass and little tufts here and there, and then I added the snow and some trees and stuff like that. And then I surrounded it with walnut veneer.
Okay.
Cut that, and that'll be stained. I'm going to stain it here before the upcoming show in June, or in just a few weeks, the 19th or 20th in Salt Lake. It'll be a little darker because I've got a larger base, display base from a group of guys called Bases by Bill.
All right.
Okay? They do really fantastic, wood bases and stuff, laser engraving, nameplates, all kinds of stuff. So went ahead and did that, and that's what that'll ultimately sit on. So.
Now, is the tank actually secured to the base, or is it just?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I epoxied the hell out of that. So underneath the tracks, I basically lined it up, marked out where the tracks are at, where it's meeting, and then I carved out of that cork. I chiseled down a trough, okay, or a trench, if you will, underneath it, and then I took some 2-part 5-minute epoxy and a couple drops of black paint mixed into it, so it flat and stuff to knock it out. And then I put that down in there, and then I set that sucker right on it.
All right.
And
it's not coming off anytime soon.
No, matter of fact, that's ultimately what caused one of the problems. So I got, like I said at the show, a perfect score would be 30.5. I got a 29, which is still good enough for gold.
Okay.
But what they did is that during transit, I flew. So I have a case, one of those. Was it tank or table war tanks?
Yeah.
Or table war, cases, whatever they have. One, yeah, they've got these really nice cases that the front comes off, the lid comes off, and all that sort of stuff. It's the perfect size to fit under an airplane seat, both on a regular jet and a regional jet. So
Okay.
it fit underneath there. I blue tacked the hell out of the bottom of it, the base to the thing, buttoned it up. It sat there. It went great. There was the issue was when the guy thought he was landing on a carrier in the middle of the Pacific. Okay, we landed so hard that it jostled it. I thought I had it set up, but what happened is that it literally, where the road wheels met the track, I attacked it with liquid glue.
Okay.
Okay, to get it to sit, I put, I got 1, 2, 3 blocks. I use these, okay, for machinist blocks.
Yep.
To weight down on it to get it in there. That sucker I thought it wasn't going to go anywhere, but yeah, it had, because of the epoxy, the tracks, they're workable tracks. They stayed. The tank popped up and broke some of that tacked glue, and I didn't know it. And when I put it when they moved it or whatever, they judged it, it shifted the tank, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, you've got floating road wheels. And I'm like, son of a, really? Because they give you, at this show, they give you feedback. They're like, why didn't you get, and so each one of them was like the right side, floating road wheels and stuff. And I'm like, really? It was glued. It wasn't going anywhere, but it just the way it is. So
because it shifted slightly.
Yeah. So I'll be fixing that because I'm going to take this is going to go to the show in Salt Lake in a couple weeks, but also I'm going to take it to IPMS Nats in Hampton, Virginia in August. So
Okay.
it's going to make the circuit for those 2 shows. And, yeah.
So this is classified as just advanced. What is master class then? Because that's pretty, in my opinion, master class quality.
No.
Oh. No.
So the masters, a new friend of mine, a guy named Dustin Diaz is a new guy. He stayed with us at the Airbnb. He's there local to Pennsylvania. He did If you go to the AMP show, he did a diorama of an MRAP, one of the new armored cars, that basically had the whole front end blown off. And the rubber road wheels, he had shredded the rubber tire. He had all the steel belted pieces, through it. It's phenomenal. This one's, I'm very proud of this, but to be a master, you have to win best of show at that event.
Okay.
And so you're truly in a class, and that's where with advanced, I could get gold, silver, or bronze for any model I do. When you're at master, when you're in the master category and stuff, it's gold or nothing. And the kicker is the masters judge themselves. So look at all these AMPS masters together. There's 10 or 15 or whoever's at the show. They literally will look at each other's work and they will judge each other's work. Okay. And again, they have their own scoring system and point system and stuff, and it's either gold or nothing. If you bring something that's half baked or whatever and it doesn't live up to it, you don't get anything. Okay. You're either getting a gold or, that's it. Nothing.
So it's more of a peer judging class.
Yeah. There's some. Yeah. In that case, it is. And here we're advanced and stuff. It's like, they've got the cool thing about the show is you drop your model off at the table during registration, and then they take it back. They put it on a little, almost like, one of those little McDonald's trays that we used to get as, like you get at McDonald's, the brown tray. Yeah. They put it on that. They take it back to the judge's room, and then the guy who's carrying it's called a ramrod. They'll take it back to the room, and there's teams of judges where they'll go through and basically just sits on a table, and then all weekend long, you'll see models come out after they've been judged. So they don't hit the display table until after everything's been judged.
Okay.
And so as your model's been judged, it's whereas other shows like IPMS Nationals, you show up and put your model on the table, and then we'll spend Friday night. We'll get sequestered. I'm one of the judges. I judge automotive for IPMS at the Nats and stuff. So we'll spend basically a 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock on Friday night until 1 o'clock in the morning, looking at all the models and judging them. And then you're doing that 1, 2, 3 triage. Like, okay, is this better than that one? No. Okay, it's out. Is this better than that one? That one's out. You're doing that emergency room triage real quick, looking for the flaws. And it does, and there's some really great work, but that's a different judging system altogether. And there's a whole debate. You can get two groups of scale models together, talk about open system, gold, silver, bronze, 1, 2, 3, and it's like Thunderdome.
So yeah, that
watch these guys in cargo shorts and white New Balance tennis shoes go at it. Okay. So.
That's awesome. Very cool. Jeff, do you have any questions?
I don't. I'm just enjoying listening. It's been fascinating. I want to go through some of the pictures though, because I know you have some questions on certain techniques, Mike.
Sure, yes, absolutely. Sorry about that.
I'm kind of curious about materials and what you actually
tell me to shut the hell up if I'm talking too much or rambling on. Seriously, guys, please.
We got a mute button. We can shut you down.
I know.
We have technology.
Yeah, we do.
My wife goes, shut the hell up. Okay. No.
I my big question is going to come towards the end, but the big one for me is the weathering, the rust, and the weathering.
Actually, it's mud.
Mud, okay.
It's mud, because it's. I added the winter scene and stuff like that, and there's pictures where I did like the whole lower hull. What is basically got mud on the underside and stuff like that.
Right.
And even though basically it's all been muddied up, and then the top deck there. So you see the loop right in front of the front road wheel. Okay, there's
right.
A little split loop. That's how they get up. Now, when I had this done before the show, I was like, okay, honey, Jamie's got a great eye for judging. Okay,
right.
For scale models and stuff. She's really a first class judge. So she would look at it, and I had it muddied up because I'm like, okay, you got a little bit of mud there where you're climbing up, seeing, walking to the hatch for the guys during, okay, you've got to have that. And she's like, you don't have enough there. It's really muddy. How are they getting into the vehicle? Do they have mud on you got mud on the ground and snow and wet and like this, but nothing on top of the vehicle. Shit. Okay. All right, you're right. And so I went through and did both wet and dry mud, built it up to where you've got those two loops on either side, how the crew gets up, and then you've got the driver's hatch and then over there on the side. And then I did some on the top with the hatch, the other two through hatches and stuff like this. And then I'd finish it. I'd be happy of it. And then Jamie would go, I'd show it to her and she's like, what about this? You're missing, where's this? You got to fix this. So for 2 weeks leading up to the show, I thought I had this thing done like 4 or 5 times.
Well, that I mean, you're talking up there, this area here and here.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And
I was just going by the color.
Yeah.
And what my military history means we couldn't have mud on vehicles because which is one of the reasons why I don't weather anything in 40K. Because I spent most of my tank career washing tanks.
Yeah.
So
no, that's where we did. I have a couple different muds, both one to simulate dry mud, wet mud, that type of thing. Did a little bit of work there and stuff, and then I did on the back of the turret. We added, once I put it on the base, I sprinkled the snow and started doing that. And there's tidbits there where you've got the mud on the snow, there's a little snow building up and like in front of the stowage and a few areas where, it's just hitting it, that type of thing. Right. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, and it tells a story because that's not just a tank driving, you've got all the stowage on it. You've got the weathering going on. So it's actually a tank that's in service. Yep. So you're kind of telling, they're out on a mission or they're out doing whatever they're doing. It could be training.
Yeah, it's mostly, like I said, it's at the Hohenfels training facility, so that's kind of where I'm like, okay. And I actually based the scheme, so the stripes and stuff, and I confirmed this with Magic Factory. They acknowledged it. Was that the scheme that they did is a what if based on Marines M1A1 that was there at Hohenfels, where they had the Marine Abrams at the time. They had this type of field applied striped camouflage in white. And it's like, oh, okay. And so I use that as a lot of reference photos for things like the stowage and things like that, as well as using it for the weathering and stuff like that, like the mud buildup and all that.
Yeah. So how critical is it for putting models in a show that you keep that historical accuracy intact for judging purposes? Like if you were to do, something not traditional or not historical, you just kind of do your own thing. Would that actually hurt you in judging, or would that matter?
Judging is subjective.
Okay.
You have humans looking at it. They're going to have likes and dislikes. That's always been one of the biggest bone of contentions and arguments, or whatever, however you want to put it, where, folks are like, well, we're not supposed to, and the different organizations, whether it's IPMS, whether it's AMPS or other systems, they're like, hey, here's the guidelines and the framework for judging. This is what you're doing. And one of the things is that they always talk about is accuracy. You're judging what's presented into you. You could be a car mechanic for the 40 years. You can know the firing sequence of a Chevy S10. Okay. If somebody puts a model of a Chevy S10 out there and that firing sequence, the plugs aren't right, you can't ding them for it.
Right.
Okay. Because not everybody's going to know.
18436 just in case you're curious. I'm serious. 18436
Well, I get that. I see that.
I was feeling inadequate, and I wanted to show off something that I knew.
But that's the thing. Like you can't. You were a tanker in an M1 Abrams. Okay. Well, there's guys that are like, oh, well, there's no crew chief, whatever. Or the guy, no airplane's ever going to get dirty. Take's never going to get muddy. And then I've got photographs.
All right.
Yeah.
So historical accuracy is not supposed to be judged, but people's biases just naturally come out.
That's exactly it.
Right.
So, and that's one thing when I'm judging like at Nats or what are the ones because been the last several years, I've been like a team captain for automotive category. And I'm like telling people, look, whether you like Chevy or Ford, it doesn't matter. You're judging the model and the car. We all can say buy to Dodge, whatever, fine. But you can't bring your biases. You can't bring your whatever. You're judging somebody's work, what's presented in front of you.
Right.
That's what if they've got, a gloss finish on the car body or this and that, if they've done this, if they've done that, okay, you're looking for different things and plus or minus, that type of stuff.
Right.
So
Very cool.
The biggest telling thing for me in this so far in this conversation has been, because I'm always looking, like, for example, one of the things that's really changed in the miniature competition is back when I first started even thinking about entering competitions for miniature painting, it was really guys that were painting their miniatures to get ready to play a game.
Yes.
And as contests become more and more commonplace, you have Golden Demon, you have Crystal Brush, and all these things are going. You now have guys that literally just paint miniatures for competition. They're not really gamers. But there's still a big difference between what we do as gaming hobbyists and what you do as a fine scale model. When you told me you measured out the distance on lines of Russia,
between the side of the road and that hash,
German roads, that right there is a telling difference. Because I've never worried about how wide the roads are in 40K. But it's the thing that attention to detail, and as Mike said, camouflage patterns. I've had guys that I've shown models that are modeled, they're fine scale models where I've done a jungle camo on like a Battletech mech or something, and I just look at the colors and then I put the pattern up all I want. I've actually had guys say that's not the right pattern.
There's a genre of models called Maschinen Krieger.
Right.
Okay. So Maschinen Krieger used to be back in the 80s. It was SF3D and stuff like that. You've seen the different kits. They're like these odd, funky little battle suits and stuff like that. Maschinen Krieger came from Japan. It was Kao Yokohama. I'm probably butchering his name right and stuff wrong. But he basically did these scratch-built models. He took Tamiya kits, took all the different models of the time in the 80s, and he built these little battle suits and stuff like this and had this whole little story that was featured in Hobby Japan magazine. All right. So it was like this, every month there was like a new model that he scratch built or whatever to help with the story and all this. So, and he did it for, throughout the 80s. Okay. And a friend of mine, Brian Krieger, who lives here in Denver, is one of the kind of curators of it, because he builds in that genre and does fantastic work, even though we'll never tell him that to his face. So, I know you're not watching this, Brian, so that's fine. Bite me. No, the guy does fantastic work. One of the things that Brian has done, and they've done to get color schemes, he'll look at nature. He'll look at like some of these tricked out, colorful tree frogs, right? With these 3 or 4 odd different color comparisons. You're like, what the heck? And then he'll actually take that camouflage from the tree frog and translate it to one of his Maschinen Krieger models. And you're like, what the hell? And the young, it's just, he does phenomenal work. The ongoing joke is that he can win at the nationals, but he can't win locally because he does it. He'll enter stuff here and it's fantastic. It gets overlooked by the judges and whatever. And it's like, fine. He goes to the nationals. He takes best in show. You're like, okay, can't win locally, but you can win national. Okay.
There you go. There you go.
That's the ongoing joke between our little group of guys. But the camouflage patterns and stuff you get, like you said, Jeff, looking at nature, looking at different things for 40K and the different, the sci-fi realm, what are you going to come up with? That's one of those Maschinen Krieger. That's one of those things where it's like, you're looking at that and how it's going to translate. You're looking at for inspiration. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you just pick up on kind of unique color palettes.
Yeah.
Like if you look at snakes or you look at any of the frogs or fish, you start seeing different color patterns. You're like, I never thought about that color palette before. Let's see how it translates into something else.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, when I was building this, I wanted to do it's NATO green, and then I basically and then I went through and I airbrushed. I added buff to the AK Interactive NATO green color. I added a buff to it to create the highlights for the panels, and that's why I'm like, you look at tanks in the field, sun's going to bleach down on them. It's not the most durable paint,
right?
You have, and that's where I kind of went through with it. So.
Yeah,
I was just reading what Heron said. He said, "Yeah, be fun to enter a Panzer IV in competition done top notch."
Actually, the AMS competition you can do that. So
Really?
the AMP show is that there's no real, unlike other shows where it's like, oh, you've got one, like IPMS, you've got 148 scale aircraft and 132nd scale aircraft or 124 scale super street cars and this and that and all these different categories. At AMPS, it's you have the category, you've got the advanced level, fine, the different levels that I talked about, and then you've got just basically the collection of a genre. This was, the 1990 and present for this category. So then they basically, it's just simple for corralling the kits on a display on the table.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter because this kit is judged only on itself. It's not judged against other models in that category at all.
Right.
It's mostly just, here's a collection. You're going to see, everything from 1991 to present. Okay, cool. Or you're looking at World War II. So you could actually do, Heron, take one of those, Hasegawa type kits where you got Panzer girls, okay, and come out with it, or and do that. And actually, I think somebody had a couple of them.
Very cool.
I remember a buddy I had back when I still lived in Columbus, and he was, before they had 3D rendering for computers, he worked for an insurance company. And what he did was he built scale models to reconstruct accidents.
Yes.
For court cases.
Yep.
And so he would take the whatever car it was involved. He'd start off with one pristine, and then he would literally build it in every stage of the accident, and then they would make basically a stop motion movie for court to show how that accident took place. But he was also a fine scale modeler, and I remember he did a kit once, and this is where I kind of realized it might be beyond my skill set. He did a self-propelled gun open top, and it had taken several rounds, hit kinetic penetrator rounds to the turret. Yep. And I was looking at where those kinetic penetrator rounds had hit, and I had asked him, because I just, out of my own being naive, the metal, the actual armor plating of the turret was actually bent outwards. And I asked him, I said, wait a minute, if the round was coming this direction, wouldn't the metal be bent that way? And he went into a big, long explanation on physics on how the metal is getting rid of the kinetic energy it's just picked up from the penetrating round. So it goes back initially, but it still has energy, and it has to dissipate it, so it flexes back out. And he went through the entire science of how that piece of that penetrated round would affect that armor. And that is like, okay, and historian, I know for stuff like this, that historical accuracy has to come into play. And we never have that with miniature painting.
It's how you execute it. I mean, it's like you said, it's doing that research to figure out, okay, how am I going to execute basically get the model to what I envision. You can look at the reference photos and stuff like this, and it's like, you've got to connect the dots, and you've got to figure out how to get from A to B. You know? That's what I did here. It's like I had this particular kit going and stuff like this, and there's a good friend of mine named John Bonani who goes by JB Closet Modeler. He lives here in Denver. Yeah, seriously, he's a great guy. But he's known for his 3-tone camouflage for German armor. He's published magazine. He's a rock star, one of the rock stars of modeling. He lives here. Actually, I'm having lunch with him later. So we have a show here in March called Commies Fest. It's Colorado modelers of science. Basically, it looks like commies. Everyone's like, really, you're commies? Like, yeah, no. It's like Colorado modelers enjoying sci-fi type thing, and it's a little play on the with the acronym with that. But they put on a show early in the spring, usually March or April or whatever, depending on the time frame. And we had a whole bunch of folks come in, and they were staying at JB's house. We had dinner down there. I brought this down for some feedback. It was far from ready. And I was like, okay, I literally just had done a pin wash, hadn't done any of the weathering and stuff on it or whatever. And I'm like, does this look okay? And it's one of those where it's like, well, everybody's like, oh, it looks good, great. And I'm like, okay, I kept bugging everybody that rest of the night. Yeah, it looks nice, looks really great. Okay, that's not the feedback I'm looking for. Give me real feedback. Tell me, does it suck? Or does it not suck? because JB usually goes, well, it doesn't suck. Yeah, okay. And I'm like, oh, okay, nice guy. But he actually told me, he's like, look, I did a pin wash with like a brown, like a burnt sienna. Okay. And so on the white, I went through and I hit the little pin wash around the turrets and stuff to make the details pop. However, what it did was, Jeff, can you go back a couple of pictures to the side? I'm sorry. So one more.
Wait, hang on a minute. I'm gonna go. I went the wrong way.
Yeah, sorry.
This one?
Okay. Yeah, this is fine. So what you've got here is where where the side skirt meets the hull, there's a bunch of bolts on top of it, right? Where they mount it and stuff. And in the white, you have the brown, I had the pin wash. And what JB told me was like, you needed to go, he finally gave me feedback. He's like, look, you need to stop using the warm tones for your weathering. You're wanting it to be cold. It's in the winter. So you need to use a grayish tone of weathering, stuff like that, to basically pull out that cold and give the viewer the sense of, that, hey, you're going to freeze your butt off because it's cold there, right? Okay. So he showed me a couple of products, from Mr. Hobby that had a grayish brown or gray, a gray weathering, a couple of different pieces. It was a grayish brown and stuff like this from it. And he's like, use this instead. So I went out there, ordered it up, did that, and basically played with it. I used that and the products from VMS to do the mud and stuff. But I kept that feedback from him in my head the whole time to get from A to B.
Right.
And that's where, like they had a product for almost basically a white, for what I used on the brown. And that's where I got that streaking effect on the turret and on the sides to pull that down to where you get that effect. And so it gives the viewer, when I brought it out and I had it at AMPS, the feedback was, yeah, I did much better than when it was there in March. It got the effect that I was looking for, and that feedback was important.
So even at your level of experience with miniature or scale models,
yeah,
you're still going out looking for that feedback, taking the model, making adjustments, making changes to it, even though you probably had it painted to a certain level where most people would have been satisfied with it. You're still taking it beyond that and making changes along the way just to make
Absolutely.
it stand out just that much more.
So a lot of people told me that if you like on my Facebook page and Instagram or whatever, I posted progress page. And what you don't see is that I'll get feedback from a lot of folks off on the side, but then there's different Facebook chats that I'm part of where I'm like, okay, does it suck? Does it not suck? What do I need to do? And inevitable, just everybody, my friends and stuff will give me all kinds of shit about it. And I'm like, sorry, didn't mean to do the F-bomb. I'm sorry. Okay.
Someone's going to have to do it.
I lost the right to say anything when I dropped mine last week.
I told myself I wasn't going to do it. I'm like, damn it. Okay. But, sorry. But yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, we went, we're getting the feedback on it, and it's helping because it's like, okay, I'm able to get out of the comfort zone, get where I want, try different things. Like this is the first time I used VMS products.
Oh,
for this model. Yeah, I never used the like I said, JB had gave me. I've been using different weathering enamels from like Ammo and AK and stuff like this, and he's like, try this and also VMS and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, because there's a couple of YouTube channels that I watch. There's a guy named Night Shift. If you watch Armor and stuff, he's like Uncle Night Shift. He's basically you can't be within that community and go, oh, do you watch Night Shift? You're like, oh yeah, duh, that type of thing. So the guy does great videos on it. Another guy, Cold Demon PL or something like whatever. Another gentleman uses that. I watch their stuff to get figure out how to use it, and then I played with it on this little by little. I did a little bit, checked it. I came back a couple days later, checked it. Jamie, what do you think? No, more. Okay,
nope.
fine.
There you go.
Because if you look at the progression of this build on the pictures, a lot of folks were like, I had it basically done. You had the color there. You had the green popping. You know, a lot of the feedback I had with before I really went into weathering, a lot of people were like, that looks fantastic. That looks great. And it's only 50, 60% done in my mind.
So you really push it.
Oh yeah. I wanted to. This whole build here was purpose for I'm pushing. I had a vision. I looked at those pictures of the Abrams and said that's kind of where I want to get to from here to there, and I rolled with it. So
very cool.
Yeah, my full intention on my upcoming Space Wolf project is to do exactly that. I'm actually going to really, I hate to say this with a mic actually watching, I'm really going to push myself out of my comfort zone. So because I learned to paint miniatures back in the 80s and 90s when it was just basically there was no weathering, there was no armor damage. They were just what I call cartoon style, bright, colorful Marines.
Classic GW, classic
GW,
BattleTech. I mean, everything was like that. Nobody thought to do a pin wash. Nobody thought to do, those types of chipping or weathering, and a lot of the stuff, things like that have evolved in the last 30 years in scale modeling. Yeah.
I think I actually used the phrase one time: a true Space Wolf would never let himself go out with damaged armor.
You coined that phrase.
But that's what I'm right now, because I literally spent lunch this week every day at work watching videos on different techniques for that other guys have used on the Space Wolves to get the kind of look they want. And I'm really going to attempt to control my impatience getting it done, which is my biggest struggle when I'm working on a model is my impatience. I want to get it done quickly. To slow that down and just make it a project that I can actually put a lot of effort in and really, really stretch my abilities and learn new abilities. So I get it.
So I have a question. I have a question for you, Mark.
Yes, sir.
So you put a lot of time, effort, and energy into this one particular model.
Yes.
Do you have I'm just going to call it a fail point, where you're building a model and you start making like little mistakes, or the model itself has flaws in it that you didn't notice at some point, where you just pack it up and go, this model's done? Oh, uh-oh.
What happened?
He went to go get his fail point.
Well, I'm actually, you guys keep talking. I'm actually looking for some of Mark's old pictures I want to actually show because I have a couple questions as well.
Okay.
So, is he back yet?
Yeah, he's back. I'll keep talking. You do what you got to do.
So, what you got here is.
Can you put us on full screen, Jeff?
I sure can. Hang on 1 minute.
Oh.
I'm coming back.
These are two kits that are the pride of my Shelf of Doom.
Okay, Shelf of Doom.
Oh yeah. Well, I have a whole rack, but yeah. So what you have here is, and I'm gonna move my Pop-Tart and I'll show you here real quick. So the ongoing joke is that this is a Tamiya Tiger 1.
Okay.
This is their late Tiger 1E. The original boxing of this kit was around 92. Okay. I bought it at a hobby shop and I started it. Then a company called Kirin came out right when the aftermarket craze. The kit itself, these late Tiger 1s are supposed to have Zimmerit, that paste, that anti-mang paste on it. Stuff like this. Well, I had it built up. Okay. Started building it, stuff like this. Well, then it was, Kirin came out with the Zimmerit resin panels for the side walls, plus this whole turret. Well, then a company called Tank Workshop came out with resin interior.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Turret, all that. All right. So I did the whole resin interior and stuff like this. Then you see the little photo etch. This is the very first set that Aber came out with back in the 90s. Aber photo etch. They did all this. Okay. I've added some little details here and there and stuff like this. I got this whole thing painted up on the interior and I'm all set. I was rocking and rolling on it. And this was in the mid 90s. And then they dug one of the Tiger Ones out of a bog in like Czechoslovakia or Russia or someplace like that. And they opened it up, and the inside of it was pristine, pretty much. I mean, and so all the reference photos we had before then said that this interior was a buff, which is like the interior buff color. Okay, a few things here and there. So I went through and I did it, not a problem. Then they show these photos, and it's like, oh, the floor where I have it tan and everything, all this other stuff, and all that. Oh, that's actually primer red. And then this was called out a different color, and that was a different color. I took this model, parked it here.
Parts all over the place.
Parts all over the place. And I put it on the shelf of doom, and that's where it's sat since the 90s.
Oh, boy.
I have yet to. There's times where I think about coming back to it, but no, I've got other things like that. Like there's a Tamiya Panther that's here as well that I started doing the Abra photo etch, and I screwed up the photo etch a little bit, but now I'm got some incentive because I took a photo etch soldering class at AMPS, and I'm like, ooh, okay, I might be able to try it. So we'll see. But
so you have fail points as well, then. So at some point, either reference 100%. Material, yeah, because I'm doing that Hemi right now, that CUDA.
Yep.
And I did not test fit the hood. I just thought it would fit perfectly. Like, why would a hood not fit? And I got everything painted, and I wanted to test fit it because when I put the engine in, I've got to line up the scoop, and the hood doesn't fit flat. It kicks up in one corner, and I'm like, what am I gonna do about that? Like,
morning, Jake.
Morning, Jake. It's just one of those things. It's just like, boy, do I just abandon the project, or do I just glue the hood down and just call it good and just make it a body display? And I'm just like kind of kicking myself right now.
Well, so for me, one of the things I'll always, I learned the hard way.
That's what I'm doing.
Just, welcome to the club. Here's your coffee mug. You get the T-shirt later if you keep going. So it's a program, a pyramid thing. So the 240Z that I did, okay. I had a similar issue. So I test fit. That's a Tamiya kit. Tamiya kits are, for all intents and purposes, their engineering is phenomenal, especially on the modern stuff. If you get a kit from like 1970, it's like the older Revell kits. You got to look at the side of the box and see the copyright date on the box, and you're like, oh, 1979. Yeah, okay, not that one. That's how you're like, oh, look, you get the Panther G for $10. Yeah, that one's older than me. Sure. But the 240Z I got as an early release from a friend of mine, Scott Gentry. He got his hands on it and was like, hey, here. And I'm like, yeah, great. I asked him, I said, was curious about building it and stuff like that. I got it home. He delivered it while on a trip to Salt Lake. Anyway, so I got it, started building it, went through it, was great. And my issue was I always test fit everything. I'll take tape, like little masking tape. I use Tamiya's masking tape, the yellow one, and I'll tape up things and look for that fit. Same thing with the Booker. Same thing with most of the models. I'll go through and I do armor and everything. Come on, you're only showing up, Jake. Come on, you missed the last hour. You get to go back and watch it because it's more than cars, Bubba. So, but thinking is just like doing those old GW minis. You got to test fit them, right? You've done works. Those arms are like on the old kit. Like, how much green stuff am I going to have to use? Okay.
Yeah.
That's the, that's the way. But the other kicker is the type of kit. Your case, when we were talking about cars and stuff and chatting and things like that the other day, MPC, ANT, those older Revell monogram kits, they're just repops. A lot of those older kits are repops of stuff that's been around since the 70s.
Yes.
Okay. repop. Well, back then, those fit and tolerances and stuff like that for the kits, they were, they were not like what we have today. You get a kit from 2025 or like the Magic Factory kit, the Booker that I put together, all those parts, it took me, it's almost shake and bake. It's great. The tracks are not on that kit, but they're 1,500 pieces for the track. No, it's not shake and bake. But the car, what I would do for your car and stuff is basically sand it back, figure out where you're at, like get your alignment on the hood, what you need to do the sanding, check the ridge, like, okay, on the recess for the body where it's sitting, work at your fitment, do the light sanding, do what you need to do to get it there, and then come back in and repaint it.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. But in the case of the 240, I built it, did all the the lower hull, geez, the chassis, everything like that. And when I did the body, I airbrushed the body. I used Tamiya lacquers on it, no problem. The blue went on fine. The clear coat, I used a different clear coat than I normally would have. And it was a little hot. So I shot, normally when you're airbrushing cars, you're going to do, you'll do a couple of mist coats for the gloss, and then you'll come back over with a heavier coat, and it's supposed to settle out. And then you give it a 5 or 10 minute flash, shoot it again, 5 or 10 minute flash, shoot it again, set it away, like in a dry booth or dehumidifier or whatever, or dehumidifier to let it do. That's what I did. I have jokingly, we call it the Easy Bake Oven. It's a dry booth. Okay. It's basically a dehydrator.
Yeah.
But it's I got it from Micromark, a couple years ago, and it's this great little thing. Put the body in there, let it dry overnight. Unfortunately, that clear coat spider web.
Ooh.
Cracked. Don't know what happened. I got in the next morning and got my coffee, took a look at it, and it just all over the finish, the whole thing, spider crack, everything. And it was just the clear coat. I was devastated. I almost was like, I'm done.
Right.
But because my friend Scott gave me the car to build I'm like, I can't give up on it.
Right.
So I had to power through it. I had to figure out how to get past it. And so what I ended up doing was sanding it down.
Did you sand it down to the raw plastic, or did you just sand it down?
No, I did. So I took, most of the time when you're doing a car, to get rid of that orange peel, you start with like 3,000 grit sandpaper, 3, 4, or 3, 5, or 6, or whatever or some folks start with 4, 6, and 8, and 12.
Right.
Okay. Gradually working up, and then they'll come back in and use like a couple of polishing compounds. Like Tamiya's got 3 tubes, like a coarse, a fine, and a finish, and you're just going through it. So I did that, and then I have this great little device from Display.
Oh, is that the drill?
Yeah, it's their. It comes with a grinding bit.
Okay.
It's got 3 speeds. It's like $25, $30 depending on where you get it. But they've added a couple of attachments as well. I've got this right now. It's set up it's got the little sponge, sanding sponge on the metal shaft here for doing ejector pin marks. Okay. It knocks them out. But the other feature is it's got this little piece with Velcro sponges, different grits. So I put the polishing compound on it, and I put their bits on it, and I worked through and I buffed it just like you would a real buff. I was able to get the color, get it back to where it was at. I was able to recover it. It's still not perfect.
Right.
It drives me because I can look at it just like anything. We look at it. We know our work. Everybody's like, oh, it looks great. It looks fantastic. Yep, it is. And it works. It'll do pretty good. It got I think a 3rd place at the show here in March, Kami show, but it is not where it was at. And I got it to where I'm satisfied with it. I got it. I got the car finished, took the photos, did what we needed to do. I'm very pleased with the results. But I also know that, worst case, it could have just sat on the shelf like this Tiger has for 30 years.
Yeah. Heron made a comment. He recently bought it to me, a German Flak 88. He says it's a newer kit, and he just loves it. He says,
yep,
they're just 10 times better. So
yeah.
And he was amazed that it has so many complex parts.
Oh,
he still hasn't put that thing together.
Well, I've got for Thanksgiving. It's a Ming Sherman.
Yeah,
and it's got the duck tracks on it, the duck pieces for the
duck bills. You got the T48, or was it the I want to say T48 tracks with the duck bills.
Yeah.
So the rubber chevron, they got the rubber chevrons on it, and then you got the duck bills on the end.
Yeah, and I looked at just putting those tracks together when I picked that up.
Yep.
And I quickly put the lid back on it and put it on a shelf. I'm like, that's going, because each one of the little duck pieces or the little extenders are separate, and I've got to cut each one of those off, and I got to pin the whole track because it's a working track. Ming's makes some pretty good models. Like
they make some. Yeah, I've got one there. I've got one there. I've got a shelf there. I'm looking at 1, 2. I got okay, because I've got the Leopard 1, A5. Yeah, I've got a few of their kits.
Yeah, I think for the Thanksgiving, it's just going to be track giving, because I think I'm just going to build the track. It's probably going to take me all month just to build the tracks. They're insane. He's pulling out the Greyhound.
Uh-oh.
So, one of my projects for April or August and stuff is probably going to be starting on the Greyhound.
Yeah.
Last weekend you were talking, last show you were talking about the 1/16 scale kits and stuff. I'm like, I've got most of them, including probably the most expensive M10 tank destroyer sold, because I want it in a charity event. Every March there's a charity called Models for Heroes. Okay, it's out of the UK, and some friends of mine. They host a group build that weekend, and it's called the 48 and 48. And it's used to be like build a 48 scale model in 48 hours,
sure.
like armor kit or whatever. But yeah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
That's just the centerpiece for the interior. I already went through and did the objector pins and stuff, but it's massive. I mean, to give you an idea of the sail. So that's the 48 scale Greyhound against the 1/16 scale Greyhound.
Yeah.
Is that the Tamiya one?
Yeah, this is the little Tamiya 48 that I did. So I was hoping to get it done for the show, but I'm probably not because of work and stuff. So.
I've got that Greyhound kit around here someplace as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to your Thanksgiving.
Oh, so am I.
And I'll probably be participating in that for sure. And I haven't quite figured out. I might be building this with it or as part of it because it's going to take a while. But we'll see.
And those kits that Andy's putting out, them and what's the
DOSWorks?
Yeah, they're just.
So DOSWorks is the actual factory that's making it is TACOM, TAKOM. Okay. So if you see a TACOM kit, they're really good as well. They're up there. They've got great detail, great parts, stuff like that. Much like the Ming, much like And so Andy worked out. The way I understand it, he worked out a partnership with TACOM and DOSWorks to do everything there. DOSWorks did the designing. I think TACOM factory produced it, that type of thing. So.
Jake, yes, you should do a Gundam kit for Thanksgiving because they're kind of tanks.
He's got a real grade he wants to build.
Yeah,
do it. I've got a friend of mine that named Cobra Plot out of Seattle. If you follow his work, he just did. He does all the Gundam stuff and everything like this, and he's a great hobbyist as well. And he does, he actually got me to where I'm buying Gundam kits, and I got a couple as well. So.
Okay. You had mentioned earlier in the show building model kits with your grandfather. That's one of the things I enjoy, quite frankly, the most right now. Is I built like 3 or 4 Gundam kits. They're Pokemon Gundam or Bandai kits.
Yeah.
It's just I have the most fun when I have a little Dino over and he and I are actually building like a Bandai kit because he's just so into it and it's just fantastic. So
yeah, they're fantastic. It's a whole there's this ongoing discussion with the older established modeling community right now about you always hear on social media and stuff like this the folks that are the retirees, right? The folks that are like, well, they've been building models for the last 50 years, 60 years or whatever. The hobby is dying. And to be fair, the hobby is not dying. There's all this, you go to the shows, everybody's like, well, the hobby's dying. Well, that's because people aren't building World War II aircraft. The hobby's not dying, and it's just not what you're used to.
It's shifting. It's
evolving.
Yeah.
It's like, we grew up, we're Gen Xers, right?
Yeah.
Oh, except for Jeff, no. So
I'm a boomer, baby. Get it right.
I know you are. I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I am. I'm a boomer.
Yeah, I know you are. You're that old. I know. So
I am. We can do an entire show on this. Let's move on.
Let me guess. You got a pair of white New Balance tennis shoes, right?
No.
Sure. Right.
Right there. Nike.
Okay. You got cargo shorts. I'm willing to bet. Yeah. Okay. White Nike. Okay.
They are white Nikes. Absolutely
That's
correct.
the next one, right? Yeah. And they're probably the old 70s style hard frame.
Word for you. Move on.
So, anyways,
I'm about ready to add a word in the middle. You can guess what it is. Move the on.
Well, the growing community of the classic guys that did aircraft and armor from like World War II and all that stuff, they that's I'm the one on the left, damn it. Okay. They were my childhood heroes.
Yeah.
Darth Vader. Okay. So, the ongoing discussion's always been like, that nowadays you get around these different communities and it's like the hobby's dying. It's not.
No.
We grew up Star Wars, science fiction, stuff like that. You've got more and more people, instead of building World War II prop aircraft or World War II armor, which is what our grandfathers, we have that tie to our grandfathers were in the war, blah, 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 grandparents, whatever. And it was like, okay, you've got that tie to it. Well, then you got my father was in Vietnam and I do the Vietnam stuff. Yeah. I could. What's new, Billy? So,
now we got 4 smart Alex on the show.
Pretty much. Okay. But the thing is that with the Gundam kits, the Gunpla, it's his own thing. It's coming in. People are in. There's not that tie to doing the World War II aircraft and armor because most of the generation now, as of yesterday, D-Day was 81 years ago.
Yeah.
You got some 10-year-old kid who, what's he going to do? He's going to do Pokemon. He's going to do Gundam. Yeah. He's going to do Star Wars or not Star Trek. Those kids suck. But anyway, so, sorry. Okay.
But you got to look at the Gundam kits as a gateway to expose this newer generation to see some of, not necessarily that they care about World War II tanks, but to see the detail and the craftsmanship that goes into making those models, and then maybe bringing it to the Gundam hobby or getting interested in the World War II armor.
Well, a lot of shows, a lot of clubs and things like this. So the club that I started a year ago, actually, this week was the Northern Colorado AMPS.
Okay.
So after I did the AMP show, I asked, there's very few clubs west of the Mississippi related to AMPS. Well, I started AMPS club in name, and I'm like, I've got guys that do Gundam. I got guys that do aircraft, cars.
Okay.
Everybody's got, it's not just, AMPS is just military models. No,
No.
you're coming to my house, you can build whatever. I don't care.
Right.
You know, we're there to have, I get 15, 10, you know, like on the 14th next weekend, it's like, we do meet on the second Saturday of the month, and they just hit me up, and, you know, they come to the house, and, you know, we'll have pulled pork sandwiches and sit there for 4 or 5 hours and build model kitchen table. Well, there's Gundam, there's aircraft, there's all this other stuff that's going on where people will come in. It's not dying. It's just not what they know.
Right.
So they think it's dying.
Well, and Heron just brought up a great point. It's like Hobby Lobby wouldn't have a aisle of scale models if people weren't buying them. Like, and if people
true, and that's where, you know, he makes a good point about the sci-fi and animated last bit. So Hobby Lobby, they'll carry the car kits and stuff, but they started doing Bandai.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they carry the Star Wars kits and some of the Gunpla. I have friends of mine. A friend of mine owns a hobby town in Westminster here in northern Denver, metro area, and Gunpla itself, he'll bring in. Justin will bring in. Basically, he's got 3 or 4 rows of Gundam.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, it's you walk down. He had an RC track. They did. He's a big RC car guy. And he had an indoor carpet track in the back. You walk down there, they get a load in. They had the center aisle, all the 8-foot tables filled up, stacked high. I'm 6 foot up to my height, and as wide as I am, and I'm a little narrower than Jeff. But okay. So, see, this is why I'm never unattended. Okay.
That's a good shirt.
Yeah.
But yeah, even Darren over at IOG, like through Jeff, started bringing in the kits, and
It's
people were buying them up.
It's a money, you know, it's gotten people in there. He'll get those 3 rows of kits. He'll have the rows on the outside, the wing on this stacked really high. You go in there 2 weeks later and they're almost gone.
I went to a store that in California, that's all they sold were Gunpla. And they had the metal anodized parts and the screws, and they had this whole. I'm just like, like it's anime. It's not something that like I'm into. I don't watch any of the shows or any of that kind of stuff, but I still admire the models.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're still just fun to buy and do like a fun build project where you can start learning about scribing and panel lining and all that wonderful stuff. But it's,
you know, Jake here mentioned he's got, you know, the real grade. The cool thing about Bandai is that they have different grades of their kits.
Right.
And basically that's, you know, allows the Gunpla modeler to, and Josh, Mr. Cobrapla, if you're watching this, I know I'm going to butcher the shit out of it, buddy, but forgive me. So they've got different grades of this. And he, you know, for different levels of complexity, much like the snap kits and stuff like that. But for assembly and stuff like that, and as you progress, they've got the perfect grade, the real grade. The real grades are cool because they have this whole interior structure because it's based on it's Bandai's interpretation of what a Gundam would be for real life.
right.
Like where versus the anime, the perfect grade, it has all the features and bells and whistles and stuff. The real grade is where, okay, you have, what would it do if we were to build this kit today, real life, and engineer it using 2025 technology or whatever, that type of thing, how would that look? And that's where the real grade comes in. It's like a different level of complexity and different vibe. And they're great because, like you said, it gets them from there to also maybe if they do cars or tanks or other things, sci-fi kits. The fact that they have Star Wars kits from Bandai and they got the licensing, you know, they're fantastic because that's, you know, it's Gunpla becomes a gateway drug into that, which is the same thing for 40K.
Right.
Miniature painting, BattleTech, all that. There's so many folks that have gone from doing, you know, Flames of War and all the different, you know, Battlefront games and stuff like this. I can't tell you that where they're like, they'll do miniature based games and come into, you know, doing scale modeling.
Yeah.
You're like, okay.
Well, you're also going to see a shift in the car market because a lot of the kids growing up today are into the the newer modern cars, they don't care about a Cuda or a Mustang or anything. They want the stuff that they're doing. What's that?
I mean, I'm doing a Nissan Skyline because
Yeah.
you know I like, you know, that fitment issue you talked about with your Cuda.
Yeah.
I get back into, after building that Tamiya kit, I was like, ooh, okay, I had built a car in 25 plus years. Okay. And I got to be careful when I jiggle like this. I look like, what's his name from the gopher from Caddyshack.
And also, guys that are built like us that start to jiggle, like, it gets perpetual where you can't actually stop.
It's like, So when I wanted to do when I finished the Nissan or the 240Z, I started picking up other kits because, you know, the paint job and stuff, that issue, I'm like, you know, I want to keep building out of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, okay, I picked up that Tamiya kit because a little less issues with fitment, but it's mostly a curbside. There's no engine with it. So it's like, do the interior and the body. I can focus on painting the body and doing what I need to. Same thing for like the Gundam kits. You can get, you know, the different grades of it and play with it. You get the real, you know, work your way up from the basic one, do the scribing. Like you talked about, doing the scribing and the etching and stuff like this. Well, great. You can get their lower grade kit and do the scribe the panel lines and do what you need to, and it's a $20 kit. So, oops, it's screwed up. I can super glue the line and rescribe it and play with it. I'm not damaging $100 kit. You know, or something like that.
Some of those Gundam kits, they're like massive and they're hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and I'm just like, holy.
Yeah, there's one that's like, I went to, so for work, the company I work for, I'm not going to say what, the company I work for, we acquired part of a company in Korea and traveled. I was part of the negotiation teams and the cybersecurity teams of the integration and stuff like this. So I was going back and forth to Korea, like before COVID. I was from like 18 and 19 and you know, I was out 2 weeks for, you know, once a month, I was like out 2 weeks, home 2 weeks, out 2 weeks, home 2 weeks. The hotel we stayed at was connected to a mall, and there was a Tamiya store and a Gundam store right next to each other. And the first trip I found this, I was like, ooh, shiny. And I grabbed a couple of kits. They were, you know, obviously cheap. Okay. And I fit in it. Then Jamie went and we got the biggest Samsonite suitcase you could get. You could fit 2 bodies and a golf bag in there. And I took that. I had all my suits and stuff in one bag, and my toiletries and stuff in a duffel bag for later. It comes in later, you'll see. And we shipped over. The other half of that bag was empty. Of the suitcase was empty. I got in there. I'm buying 48 scale armor kits from Tamiya.
Going nuts.
What is listed on, and what they had was the yen was the price.
Okay.
Oh, the exchange rate from Korea to yen. Okay, to this, to the American dollar. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. And I'm like filling up the suitcase. I took a duffel bag, folded up gym bag, unfolded it, put all my socks and underwear in the duffel bag, put a tag on it and checked it, and said basically they could you know, if they want my socks and underwear, oh well.
Yeah, who cares?
But the suitcase was all the models.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's kind of how I go when I go to Adepticon or if I go to Gen Con. Like, don't really take a lot with me, but when I come back, my bags are like 5 times heavier because you just stuff them full of everything that you pick up. So,
yeah, it's yeah. I mean, it's been, you know, I had the whole thing like I said, 2 weeks out, 2 weeks back, and pretty soon I got. Oh, I'll show you.
Uh-oh.
Look at all that.
Holy cow.
Oh my.
The whole world there.
You can open your own hobby shop.
Well, a friend of mine affectionately calls it Bradley Hobbies.
I can see that.
I love it.
I can see that.
You know,
That
it's
is
like,
so
oh,
neat.
Bradley
Well,
Hobby.
we've got some pictures from Discord, Mike. You want to go through those now?
Yeah, if you want, we're running late. We're almost at 9 o'clock.
I'm sorry.
You get three old Muppets up here, and all they do is talk.
All they talk. I'm a little angry that you made me actually play the straight roll and actually get us back on track.
Oh my!
That's normally not my job.
No, not your job at all. This is Amos's work, right?
Yeah, his name is Logan Grimnar. He's been doing a lot with those Mars bases.
Ragnar Blackmane, not Logan Grimnar. No.
I'm sorry, that's Ragnar Blackmane.
Really? You got to give up your Space Wolf card. Sorry.
Again, Boomer Stroke.
Yeah,
you know,
I know. No excuse.
Always work right.
He's an orc player at heart. He doesn't know the difference.
The best thing about this Ragnar Blackmane is he's got the proper blonde hair.
There you go.
So,
Yeah. It's a dye job. Give me a break. He's got some nice and easy from the 40K world. Come on. So
Jake said he threw his clothes away and brought home 3 check suitcases of Gundams.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said,
it happens.
So there's Amos's Ragnar, looking really good.
Yeah, I love it. Just love it.
JP, I forget what he called this, but there's a little one and the big one.
Those are cool looking models.
They are. They're great. In the Discord, they tell you what they are.
Yeah. Love it.
Really good stuff. Tim has been working on something huge.
I think this is Revolutionary War stuff.
I think so. This is half. There's the other half.
Yeah. I forget what he was working on. Yeah. Pike. It's the Warlords epic.
Pike and Shot.
No, I don't know if it's Pike and Shot, but it's the epic scale stuff.
Yeah, the epic scale stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. But that I gotta say the smaller scale armies just look fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just fantastic look. And then there's some close up shots.
There we go. That might be his Pike and Shot.
I think it is Pike and Shot.
Yeah, he's got so many. He goes from project to project, so it's hard for me to keep up. I just get.
Unfortunately, we all do that.
Yeah,
we're constantly changing projects. So, and then there's the last one, I think. And then somebody's dice tower.
Yeah, I got my dice tower done. This was a 3D print. I started doing a lot of effort on but the 3D prints just got so much lining going on. I was just like, all right, I'm just going to get this done.
Is that FDM?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not resin.
And then, wait, one wrong way?
Wrong way.
We're going. There we go.
In charge of technology.
Not today. I'm just having some serious brain farts.
So I took your advice from last week's show.
Yeah.
Glazed over it with the base coat, and then I did a light glazing of like a mid-tone just on like the tops of the shoulder blades and the biceps and stuff. So
did you like what came out?
Yeah, I'm happy with it. It took all the contrast out, obviously.
Right.
But I'm happy with it. It's actually turned out really nice, and I'm quite pleased with that.
Kind of smooths all that gradient out.
Yeah, I just had to keep the thing on his. He's got a corn symbol on his forehead, so I just kept that with the highlighted tone.
Right.
But the problem with glazing, like anything, is you got to make sure the consistency in which you mix that paint up.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, I've been using. So for the most part, I switched to AK 3rd Gen paints.
Okay.
Just because I can get them here at Hobbytown, and to be fair, I had a friend of mine who's a rep for them, a guy named Rick Lawler, who's you
got the inside connect.
Well, yeah, he started recommending them, and I'm like, you should give them a try. And we were at a show last year, and he had them and all this, and I picked up a bunch, and they're really good, and I'm like, damn, okay, all right, and I liked them, and I pretty much switched to them. One thing I really like about them, they have this retarder.
Okay.
And it's liquidy. It's not a thick.
So it's almost like thinning the paint down on top of it.
It's almost like a thinner. So what I've been doing for my glazes, they have a glaze medium that's a little thicker, but I use the retarder, and on my wet palette, and I'll put a couple, put a drop or whatever, like I'm doing these German figures.
Yeah.
And I'll use 2 drops.
As you drop it.
I use 2 drops. Yeah, that was 1 drop. Okay. I use 2 drops of this to keep it going, and then I'll thin it a couple things with water, and I'll do, the 2 thin coats type thing. So
yeah.
And it works great. I like their stuff. So,
But
glazing, it's been a nice little change doing miniature figures.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that flesh tone came out for you, buddy.
Yeah, I was happy with your suggestions, and I actually listened to what you had to say.
There's a first.
Usually, your advice takes me down the wrong path in life.
Not
like a train wreck. I know.
All right, so Mark, everyone can find you on Glue, Sprues, and Barbecue, BBQ.
Glue, Sprue, and Barbecue on
And
Facebook,
that's on Facebook and Insta.
as well as Instagram. Yeah.
All right. And you've got some podcasts and things that you're friends with the guys, so they bring you on, and just like we did here.
I'll post on their Facebook page and stuff like that, and occasionally, they'll when they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, I'll get invited, which is
Jeff, did you have any other questions you wanted to hit up?
No, I'm good. I really enjoyed this morning. It was a lot of fun. Great talking to you, and just your work's fantastic. I've always regardless of you and I, taking shots at each other on a regular basis, your fine scale model work has just always blown me away. So, well done, sir.
All right, everybody. We ran it kind of late, but you get old guys together, you're going to hear stories, you're going to hear conversations. So, hope everybody
ramble on next time.
I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We will be back next week.
Yep.
Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, everybody, take care.
See you guys.
Oh wait, I've got to find the buttons I got to press. Sorry, I got caught up in conversation, and look at this. I lost everything. All right, everybody. We're out of here. We'll talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Thank you.